What's up, everybody? I'm Eddie Haith here at the Free State Film Festival. This is the Tacos and Trailers night, and I'm with Backer Hamada.
How are you guys doing?
First question, how did your time at KJHK and Futurology shape the way you approach storytelling through video today?
Well, I think futurology, I learned a lot about social media and understanding audiences through making shorts, and then I was able to translate, some of the work I'm doing today with Trauma, the new Epidemic, and I kind of built a marketing department for them where we started doing social media. I built like 25,000 on TikTok, but a lot of that was because of the insight I got from working on futurology. And then KJHK taught me a lot because, you're dealing with a really big staff of students. I kind of got to see multiple aspects of that. And I learned how to, manage students and work with people. And, a lot of my connections were purely because of KJHK. So a lot of the growth I've had within, the organization that I had built and documentary that I've been bringing to KJHK.
You visited Ethiopia.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was amazing. I think one of the biggest things about, going to another country, especially when there's like conflict outside of the city we were in, was just some of the protocols you have to have. You could bring a drone into the country, but there's a chance that your drone could get seized at the border. So we didn't bring a drone, even though it seems like you do it. And then just like filming in a place where there's a lot of poverty, it seems like a scary thing when this piece of equipment is valued here and someone could just take it. But then you start to realize people are just people, and they're really good. So
how many people did you travel there with?
Probably, so the first time we went twice. The first time I went with Professor Matt Jacobson and then two other students. And then there was a nurse, there was a couple of medical students, so maybe like 10 people, We had our own little thing, we had this hotel, and then the second time, around the same amount of people,
How long did this film take to produce?
It's been about 2 years from the beginning to the end. But, this isn't the end necessarily for the short. This is, our final product for now, but we're working with some producers and some connections that I got from our last festival to work on a feature that can hopefully get a broader reach, because having a feature can be quite different than just using a short. So yeah.
What was the most valuable lesson you learned while juggling multiple media related roles in college?
I think the biggest lesson I learned is that you don't really have a lot of time for breaks. You have to make your job and everything you're doing your life. You have to make that fun. So instead of, I went from a time where I used to play video games, hang out with friends all the time. I had all this free time. But once you get really busy and you're juggling all these things, if you want to be happy, these things have to be your life. These things have to make you happy. So that was challenging at first to transition. I don't even think I'm yet.
Yeah. What was the turning point during the production of Trauma, the new Epidemic, that led to the founding of IOTC, International Orthopedic Trauma Collaborative?
So after our first trip, on that trip, a lot of people who were on this project never traveled overseas, and a lot of people have never been to a country like Ethiopia where there's so much poverty. The first time we went there, we were walking out on the street, just our first day to kind of, get an understanding of the area, and we took the wrong turn, and we went into a really kind of poverty-stricken area. So for me, and for all of us, there's all these people asking for money, there's different things that you'd never see in, society here. And there's a lot of people who are struggling. But when you see these people, they were all good people and they were just like us, and they just wanted to live a good life. So
I think life, and they always could have a helping hand.
Exactly, yeah. So that was, I think, the major turning point for not just me and all of us to kind of inspire us. Once you're able to see this perspective, it means a lot more than just a project. And then on the way back, we were sitting on a plane, and I was like, we should start some marketing efforts for this. So I came up with the idea of, building a marketing department out, and Matt got really involved in that as well because he was about to go on sabbatical. So kind of things just perfectly lined up for us to build what we needed to build.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's interesting because over here in America, we do a lot of good deeds. We tend to don't realize the impact of what we can do emotionally and physically to these people. And within your travels across these, you definitely probably saw the impact. Saw happy faces. and saw a side of their society that is not necessarily highlighted in
Yeah.
public.
Exactly. I mean, that's the biggest part about, for me, documentary filmmaking that really drew me into it. Is just the opportunity to give someone a voice who doesn't have a voice. Like the first documentary I did with KJ and HK, it was about, Quindaro and, just the importance of Quindaro and, just African American history. And, that ties to this guy with jazz and how, jazz gave people a voice when, people who were African American didn't have a voice.
Right.
So in the same way, having these expertise in media, it's a really powerful thing. It does take a lot of responsibility, but you can really change the world.
Definitely.
And that's what I hope to do, obviously. So.
Definitely. This is the only time in your life. That's it. It's pretty much when your eyes are open, you can really see and take in the world. And our eyes are open probably like less than 13 hours a day. And, like what?
I think that's
Crazy.
100% agreed. I think there was this thing I was saying, it's like, you should do your best, like try your hardest while you can, and then relax when you have to do it. Because like right now, I have all this energy, and I just need to, use it while I can.
How did your experience in Ethiopia influence your perception of trauma and global health?
Well, before Ethiopia, in a lot of the interviews we did, we talked a lot about the trauma epidemic. We talked about some of your numbers. Oh, there's a backlog here and there. But when you're actually there on the ground, it's the emotional, aspect of all of it. Being able to actually see the person who's getting affected. Like after one of our fellows went back to Ethiopia, he was able to open the first foot and ankle clinic in the entire country, which serves the whole country, 120 million people. So from, knowing about like how there was no foot and ankle clinic and people who had this kind of, injury, they couldn't get really the clinical support they needed, and seeing that the project that we're working on made that impact just at a small scale, that can change the world. That really changed my perspective, and but like at the end of the day, this isn't really something we see in the West. The millions of people that die from trauma, which is more than HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And obviously, when I talk about trauma, I don't mean the kind of trauma that we hear about here in the West, which is, more of the mental side of things, which is very real. But, I'm talking about bones breaking, stuff like that. So just being able to see it in something that you don't see here in the West, like that's a big part of the world. That's so many people.
The rise of technology and social media within the U.S., it really takes our mind off of what's happening outside of it. It's very distracting, is what I've realized. And it's getting more distracting by the days. And it would be very interesting if there was areas in our social media presence where we all could highlight what's happening outside of the U.S. Because, yes, we have our own nation over here and everything, but we're a combined communal group. This is our world. And what happens outside of the U.S. is also... it'll eventually come and affect us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing about this project that really drew a lot. If you're going to talk to someone about contributing to something like this, why would they want to contribute to something that doesn't help their people? But the deeper we dove into this, number one, a part of the reason why they have a lot of trauma is because of the things that we want in this country. It's not our fault, Everyone wants a phone nowadays, but you don't know, the downstream effect of what that could be. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy a new phone. But, it's important to think about these things. And then at the same time, through these collaborative efforts, our healthcare gets better as well. We start to see things in our system. Like over there, though they have a very big backlog, you can go to the hospital and publicly you can get treated anything. But here, if it's not life-threatening, but it is life-changing, they're not obliged to help you. So the thing that really, I think is just really important about this project is, and I think it gets into the documentary, but, just the idea of this is going to help us at the end of the day. And that's what people need. People want to, they don't all get to see that perspective. Not everyone has this care for it, people from the other side of the world. But if it can help your community, then, it might motivate some people.
It's always good to be aware of other people, other cultures, because we're all connected.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree. We all have that same brain at the end of the day.
What challenges did you face when capturing stories that crossed international lines, and how did you overcome them?
So the language barrier was pretty challenging. Yeah, so like we'll be interviewing someone, and like there's a big reason why I didn't include the most patient stories in the documentary. And that's something that I hope the feature, in the future, can include a little bit more of. But it's really hard to capture someone's emotion through a translation. So we had like this doctor from America, Dr. Bebe, who's on the board with Ethiopian as well. He works in internal medicine in KU Med, and he was there. And while we were interviewing patients, he'd be the mediator, he'd be the one talking. But it's just like when you interview someone in their language and you can understand, it's so different. It's so hard to get an emotional effect when someone else is speaking on behalf of you. So I think that's the biggest challenge, and I wish that could have been more in this documentary. Is having a patient actually speak about their experience. Also, like, what are you gonna do? Like, if I could interview a patient, even if I wanted to share that story, it's just really hard to put that in a documentary when you don't know what the outcome is gonna be. It's like I might interview this person now, but that person might end up dying. So like I don't want to put that out there, and I want to have respect for this person.
Yeah. Within the film that you got done, I guess you're still working on it. In order to get that done, you needed a team. Everybody had their own individual little jobs, and you wouldn't have gotten the experiences that you've gotten without people being there.
Yeah, I just want to stress, like, the most important people at the end of the day is like when we come to, it's like people like you and people who are putting these screenings together and festivals together. Without outlets like this, nothing is really able to go across to an audience. So I'm just really grateful that we have connections like this, and shout out Matt Jacobson, because without him I don't even think we'd be here. Here. Like, I think we were like a last minute change too. So I'm just very happy that we have great people on our team who can pull some strings for us, and that's just super awesome.
I just graduated KU, and it was just an incredible time. So many connections.
What'd you study?
I did multimedia journalism and digital photography.
Oh yeah, so you did the J School film, the media thing. I saw that.
Yeah.
I would have probably went that. But I'm glad I went through the film school, because Matt Jacobson is. I got very lucky that I got to have him kind of mentor me, toward in this project, and the fact that he had a sabbatical, like perfect timing. At the end of the day, it's the easiest thing in the world to be aware. I don't want you to go and don't give a donation unless you're really passionate about it. I just want you to think about some of these things that are happening in our world, and I want you to think about how what you do can impact someone halfway across the world. And if you can think about that one thing, that's just one step in the right direction for what I'm trying to do. You can't just tell someone you're wrong, and expect them to change just with the you're wrong. I'd rather just share this perspective, let them sit on it, let them think about it, and because everyone has a busy life and everyone has all these different things, so just want to take that slow, approach. This isn't going to happen overnight. So.
Yes, nothing happens overnight.
Yep.
Yeah, and if it does happen overnight, it's very temporary.
Yes.
Well, it's been Eddie Haith here at the Free State Film Festival, and I got a pleasure to speak with Backer Hamada.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Great interview.
Amazing.